Hello, everyone. I have a little bit of a suggestion, which is I think we should stop using the term detransition, and here is why I think that. What does the word transition mean? People usually tell you it's something like it means to move from one gender to another gender, but that's not how it's actually used. It's a little bit more specific than that. Usually when we say transition, we mean transitioning from your assigned gender to a different gender. And why is this distinction important? It's important because we don't use the word detransition in the same way. What does detransition mean? It basically means that you are returning to your assigned gender. And why is that a problem? It's a problem for the same reason why using the word normal instead of cis is a problem. It's because it's granting normalness, naturalness to the state of being cis. So let me explain it a little bit like this. Detransition basically means untransing. That is what it means. When really, I think it would give us more utility if we called detransition. Instead, we call that transition. Or hell, maybe we should call it retransition. Detransitioners aren't returning to normal. They aren't returning to cis. They've transitioned 2 times. Once when they transitioned away from their assigned gender, and once when they transitioned toward their assigned gender. You know, it's a little bit frustrating to me because I feel like it's one of those things that most people don't notice, but it does. This language, detransition, to untrans someone, the returning to a natural state, it's inherently problematic language to me. And, you know, I don't think that we should grant that to detransitioners. I don't think that we should grant that to cis sexism, or cis normativity. Because being cis isn't normal. Being trans isn't abnormal. And that is implied in the term detransition. And something that a lot of people don't seem to realize is that whenever like an AFAB person becomes a woman, when they identify as a woman and they learn how women dress and they learn and replicate patterns of behavior like the intonation of your voice, speaking patterns, behavior, body language, that was not something that came in the package of having 2 X chromosomes and having a vagina when you were born. It wasn't included. It is something that you picked up on. And although it might not have always been incredibly purposeful, aligning with that gender identity and replicating it, that AFAB people transition to women. Like the great ContraPoints once said, I was not born a man, I was born a fucking baby. Babies are not men, babies are not women. It's kind of like how everyone is born atheist, and they become a religion. They are indoctrinated into a religion. They pick it up one way or another, consciously or unconsciously. And I'm not saying here that gender is socialized into people. You can't, obviously, conversion therapy does not work. This is something that we know. And people will identify as a gender for whatever reason. I don't know why I'm a guy. I just am. I just feel that way, and I just am. So don't fucking like get it twisted and saying I'm doing some like true scum shit or some nonsense like that. It's just that, you know, AFAB people are not inherently inclined to become women. It's not inherent. It's not in your fucking DNA. It's not in your fucking reproductive system. It's not in your gonads. Your gender identity is not related to your biology. These things, you know, when boys become men, they are transitioning to men. And also, I would argue that the gender norms for people, cis people, are also different depending on age. So the norms that a cis woman will follow are different if she is 90 years old, which is different from how she will do her hair and speak and dress if she is 20 years old. They're almost like different genders, except it is perceived as one gender for whatever reason. It's really interesting, I think, that the behavior norms and how you interact with someone are... I mean, it really is like another gender, the way that you treat people depending on a lot of, like, cultural factors, including their age. I say, if you meet a detransitioner, especially one who's an asshole, you know, people who get paid to testify and pretend that transition is harmful and those kind of assholes. Which most detransitioners are not. There I go using the word detransitioner. Retransitioner. Most of them are not like that. Most of them are just regular people who, a great deal of them attempt to transition again later in life. And most of them aren't pieces of shit, I think. But, you know, I think if you do meet someone like this, you should remember that they haven't untrans themselves. It's actually that they liked being trans so much that they're double trans. They transitioned 2 times. That's how much they like being trans. But for real though, for me, I think the problem lies in that cis-sexism, that cis-normativity, that the idea that you are returning to a normal state. One of the biggest problems, like one of the most like prevalent arguments, I think, in favor of transphobia, the one that we see over and over, is that natural is good. We see the naturalistic fallacy over and over. And so I think it's important to adjust your language here. I think it would be beneficial for us to stop using the term detransition, because we got to erase the idea that cis is normal. Cis people aren't normal. That's not the natural state. Identifying with your assigned gender is not, you know, it's not natural. It's not a natural thing. And, you know, I think I should probably explain that a little bit, because I don't want people to, like, misconstrue that. What I mean by that is that, you know, gender is a social construct, as we know. It's not something that was discovered in the wild. It is something that humans decided to craft and make up. It changes over time. It changes depending on where and when you live. And, you know, it's not quite a static thing. It's not a static thing at all. And because of that, you know, there's not something in the Y chromosome that makes a person desire to wear jorts. You know, that's not a thing that's built into your sex chromosomes. It's not built into the gene expression. And so I just think that adjusting our language here, and instead of saying detransition, like, okay, I get it. Okay, don't say detransition. What are we going to say instead? Just transition or retransition. I don't think we should use retransition in seriousness. But have you ever seen people type out, for example, let's say there was somebody like me, so FTM, but then if I transitioned again, then I'd be FTMTF. And then if I transitioned again, I'd be FTMTFTM. Or, you know, some people will type FTX if they are non-binary. But there's also sort of for some people, a problematic element to referring to and like relying on the assigned gender as a baseline. And I do agree with that. I think referring to that and relying on that as a baseline is a problem, because there's so much variance, not just in people's biology, but in people's gender expression and how they feel, and like it's and their upbringing. You know, it's not actually as relevant as people think it is. And of course, gender essentialism goddamn sucks, and we need to eliminate it. And that's, I think, one of the things that is most important about this. You know, like, a lot of people wonder, like, why are trans people so, like, fixated on language? That's how they perceive it. They think we're sort of, like, fixated and, like, picky and overly precise about our language. But there's a reason for that. It's because so many ideas can be packed into a single word, or, in this case, into a single prefix, detransition. That D implies that your assigned gender is the natural state, and that is why I take issue with that word. So anyway, those are my thoughts about it. I'd be curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And yeah, it will probably be a little bit clunky at first while we are adjusting to it and finding ways to talk about it. Some people might be like, hey, so like this lack of specificity in getting rid of detransition and only having the one word transition, won't that make things more confusing? Won't it make things a little bit blurrier? That is exactly the point. That is what I want. I want that clarity to be absent. I want that fixation on the binary assigned gender, the importance of that and the naturalness of that. I want that to be erased. And if we effectively work to erase that in our language, like we have been effectively making the distinction between cis people and trans people, you know, using the word cis instead of normal, which effectively puts cis people and trans people on a more equal playing field. I think that's important. I just think it's a good idea. Thank you for hearing me out about this. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you have any ideas, agree or disagree. I might just be a little bit insane, not gonna lie.